Burke, we've lost contact with the colony on LV-426. Take Gorman and his team to investigate.
There have been many clones of Doom over the years. That's why we have the first-person shooter genre. And as I said before, a lot of the clones were different because of their theme, because they had something slightly different. Different setting, different characters, different kinds of weapons and enemies. But the most fortunate ones didn't just rely on the creativity of the developers. No. They licensed their theme, and that's where Alien Trilogy comes in. Created many moons ago by Probe Entertainment. This is a game often called overlooked, a gem that people and time have forgotten, a standout shooter that maybe wasn't the best known of its time but surely stood out among the sea of clones. So that's why I thought to myself, okay, this game deserves to be on the show in this themed month of Doom clones, of early shooters. It's one that I've never played before. It's one that I pretty much glossed over in all the years I have played video games. And I'm starting to understand why. Now, when people say that this is a great game, I'm not disagreeing with them. For what they played, at the time they played it, how they played it, where they played it, it may have been a really nice game. But this was released in the same year as Duke Nukem and Shadow Warrior and Quake itself, and that is, how shall I put this? The PC is not where this game belongs, even though it is a clone of Doom, and you know, Doom, PC game, it's where you think it would probably do best, but not in 96. If this were released in 95 and 94 even, this would have been a game that would have stood out. But on PC in 96, it did not have a good day. Especially because how should I put this? It has a lot of things in common with Doom, but a couple of things in common with Wolf 3D as well, such as the more limited weapon variety and the fact that you're mostly just going through corridors with barely a hint of an open space as you would sometimes find in Doom. Alien Trilogy has you starring as Ellen Ripley. You're basically going through the general idea of the story of the movies, seen through the lens of a first-person shooter. You start off at the beginning of a level, you have a weapon, the first one being a pistol, and you proceed through a level shooting aliens, shooting facehuggers, shooting renegade droids, shooting some infected crew members that got a bit crazy and started shooting you, and then shoot the aliens right next to them. You've got your chest bursters, you've got all sorts of different types of varieties of it, well, two of them that I've found. But in general, I wouldn't say it has a super duper mega great variety of enemies. It doesn't really throw that many curveballs at you as Doom would. It's more in the Wolfenstein category of types of enemies. And it is a bit in the same category when it comes to the weapons. Like I said, you have the pistol, which is just about worthless against anything that isn't a facehugger. Facehuggers, by the way, not really deadly. They don't do much. You can almost ignore them, which is preferable if you're not using the pistol at that point. The pistol is the only weapon to have, let's call it infinite ammo, since you will always have one bullet left, which makes it useless when fighting a xenomorph or people, but against a facehugger, yeah, sure. You can't even use it to blow up barrels, you're gonna have to get a shotgun for that. The shotgun is a more useful weapon. It can really do some damage up close. Then you have your pulse rifle, you have your smart gun, and your flamethrower, which it doesn't really set things on fire. It mostly just pushes against them and they eventually die. You do also have grenades or seismic detonators, which are also grenades, and the game doesn't explicitly tell you they're grenades, so if you're like me and it doesn't connect in your head that that's a grenade, you may not think to yourself, okay, I'm gonna press secondary fire to fire it, and it only dawns on you that you could have done that when you get grenades for your pulse rifle, because the pulse rifle is the only one with grenades. But anyway, that's your entire repertoire of guns. And they are all accurate to the movies. They are all exactly what they should be. But they kind of make for a lackluster game. There's no BFG moment, there's no rocket launcher moment, there's no buckets and buckets of viscera spread all over the map with just one shot moment that makes Doom so enjoyable. It makes all its clones so enjoyable. Just don't have that oomph. And that's because this isn't that kind of game. It's not a Doom kind of game the way it's built. It's more of... I wouldn't dare say it that it's a survival horror type of situation. Since you happen to have quite a bit of health, enemies don't seem to do really as much damage as you'd think they would. On the first couple of levels, I mean, I didn't get very far into it. I only managed to kill one of the queens. But it's not meant to make you feel overpowered. It's meant to make you feel like there is a struggle there. So you'll be going along through many different levels. 30 of them, I think. And you'll be fighting enemies sometimes in situations that are not all that favorable to you, especially if you haven't really been paying close attention on how much ammo you have stocked up. I think it was at the 3rd or 4th level that I realized, oh, I don't have any more ammo for the shotgun. Mostly because I had accidentally skipped a part of the previous level where I could have gotten ammo for the shotgun because I entered the elevator leading to the next level by mistake, thinking it may have been a way to get to another portion of the current level, but no, it turns out I had to go a different way, which would have led me to places where I could get more ammo and possibly a flamethrower, because I started finding ammo for it, but I didn't have one. The game does have a map. You can look at it every time you press tab. You can even zoom in on it to see your orientation and stuff like that. So I wouldn't call it unfriendly. I would just say that it lacks two very important features. One would be the ability to punch something when you get to the end of a level to actually initiate the end of the level, so that you will know that, oh, this is where it ends, so I should probably go back around and see if I miss anything. And the other thing would be the ability to save the game. It only has it between levels because, well, this isn't a PC game. This was built for the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation. You can tell that because on the PlayStation, from what I've seen, it looks a tad bit better, runs a tad bit smoother, and from what I've been told is not actually any better to control. The game was made in an age when you really didn't have standardized controls for first-person shooters yet on consoles. So when this game came to PC, it still doesn't have them, so you're not going to look around with the mouse. You can turn with it, you can't unbind the move with it. Looking up and down is not really something you need to do in this game. You can sort of do it like a bit, but it's not really vital. And you can strafe if you want to, but it's awkward. The movement is quite awkward. It's not really fluid. It doesn't feel as snappy as Doom did, or as even Wolf 3D did, to be honest. Not even gonna compare it to the build engine games that were coming out that year, because that would be kind of unfair. Technologically, it is not made at the same level as a build engine game. It's built for certain hardware that was still finding its footing back then, so it's a more limited experience, is what I'm trying to say. But for what it is trying to be, I would say that it is kind of good enough. It's just that it's not the kind of game that really stands the test of time, is what I'm saying, especially on the PC. It really doesn't hold up at all, especially if you have the version from Abandonia, which doesn't have any of the CGI cinematics in it, because why would it? It's from the Yarharhars, the Gulfs of Plunder, if you get the meaning. Well, it's from Abandonia, but it is a pirated version. And apart from not having any cinematics, I don't think it has any music either, because I haven't run into any music. There are some voice clips for Ellen Ripley, but I don't think it's Sigourney Weaver. She occasionally spouts off some catchphrase like burn and take this, and one-liners, the things you used to see in most games when characters had personality. They can repeat a lot. They don't have super variety. Now this may be because there is no variety, or because the version I have doesn't have all of them. So presentation wise, it's really not all that great for when it was made, but what I will give it credit for is that the objectives of each level are different, well, mostly different. They have you do all sorts of things, like blow up barricades, find ID cards, kill certain numbers of enemies, do stuff that's not just get the elevator and clock out. There's a hint of variety there, and the level design, it's Well, in some places it does remind you of something like Doom, like Wolf 3D, and others not so much. And what it really could have benefited for was the ability to save during a level, not have to restart a level completely to get a thing you can't get now because you can't get up to where you used to be. Or when you get to the elevator that's supposed to end the mission, if you haven't completed the objective of the mission, it shouldn't restart the mission. It should just tell you, oh, objective still not done, go back and do it. But it doesn't do that. If you haven't completed the objective to a certain amount, think maybe over 50%, you restart the mission automatically. There is no do you want to. And yet, it's still kind of a better game than Alien Colonial Marines. But I think I've beaten that horse so much that it's undead at this point. If you want to play Alien Trilogy, I mostly suggest that you get the PlayStation version or the Sega Saturn version, something that you can emulate and have a save feature. Because the PC one, well, I think there's a version that runs in Windows, but it's 16-bit Windows, so it's a no-go on 64-bit Windows. DOS version, really not feeling the underrated classic vibe from it. This is a gem that time has forgotten. This is a legend from the days of yore kind of scenario. Really not getting that. Again, especially because it's from 1996. Where it have been made earlier maybe, but this is 2 years before Half-Life, before Unreal. This is 3 years after Doom. This is after Dark Forces, after Marathon. There was a lot of competition back then. But at the same time, thematically, it did justice to the source material. It was as close to it as it could be in the form of a video game, of a first-person shooter video game. It just wasn't the best it could have been. I mean, we were already 2 years out from Alien vs. Predator, the first one, the one from the Atari Jaguar. That sort of did the same thing, with the same weapons, the same kind of setting, with a better motion tracker, with better graphics. I could have probably tried to make a show about that one instead. I guess I could save it for next year. Goodbye, everybody.